This video is probably going to go very quickly considering I have my end of year 2025 list to craft. I'm kind of backtracking a little bit to be able to do my wrap-ups for the months that I missed for 2024. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Hi everyone, my name is Rose, also known as TA Summers. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my reading wrap-up for the month of November of 2024. I'm going to go through these books. It's a total of 9 books that I'm going to very briefly highlight and not spend too much time about them in the beginning of this video. I'm going to do my end of year highlights, and there are going to be several of these books that are going to be talked in more detail for those for some of my favorites of 2024 as I can upload those videos. So let's go ahead and just dive in. The very first book that I read in November of 2024 was For Found Dead by Natalie D. Richards. I gave this 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was kind of a disappointment for me. You're following Joe and a group of teens who are working a movie theater that is on the precipice of being shut down. It is literally their last day. And something happens in terms of one of the teens coming into the theater carrying a gun. One of the things that really disappointed me about this particular book, it is a suspense thriller mystery, and you follow the teens as they're trying to survive a gunman that is in this movie theater. I was disappointed in terms of the actions of the main character, Joe, in terms of things. She knows from the get-go that there's a character that the teens all know, like among their associated group, that is carrying a gun into the theater, and she doesn't tell anybody. And that was one of the main sticking points in terms of where I I'm like, why did you not tell anybody that this kid was carrying a gun? And you could have told everybody sooner in terms of things, so that the sequence of events did not have to happen. But it wasn't one of Natalie D. Richards' strongest books, in my opinion, in terms of things. So I understood kind of like the low overall ranking on Goodreads in terms of things compared to her other works. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was compelling in the points where it was compelling, but unfortunately it disappointed me compared to some of her other work. So there's really just not much for me to say about this book in terms of things. It may make my most disappointing reads of 2024 list, where I can talk about it in a little bit more detail, but overall, I thought it could have been better. So For Found Dead by Natalie D. Richards, 2.5 out of 5 stars. Second book that I read was The Crossover by Kwame Alexander. This is actually middle grade contemporary. This is about a boy named Josh Bell and his brother Jordan. They're twins who play on a basketball team together, and it chronicles like some of their growing pains and different things that in terms of what they experience while they're playing on the team and what expectations are set for them. And you're primarily following Josh. I thought this was a wonderfully compelling narrative for middle grade. I really got into learning about Josh and his relationship with his twin brother, and having to navigate a lot of emotional roughness between being on the team, certain things that happen, and also his family life and the expectations that are put upon him. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. And I definitely want to be able to read more of that perspective series, but I read The Crossover by Kwame Alexander, 5 out of 5 stars. Third book that I read in the month of November 2024 was A Certain October by Angela Johnson. This was a reread for me. This is YA, and this is essentially about a girl named Scotty who is the survivor of a train crash, and she is reflecting upon kind of like her survivor's guilt in the aftermath of that particular tragedy, and also navigating the relationship between her peers and also her relationship with her autistic younger brother. I thought that this was a very short read. I thought it was very easily accessible and very short in terms of the audiobook reading. I haven't read it in a number of years, so it was basically a return to me of picking up Angela Johnson's work. I thought that the premise of this was very, very compelling, but the execution of it, I think, because it meandered a lot and because of the way that it was told, I don't think it had the particular punch that it needed to be able to really hit home with the heavy themes and things that you're following Scotty along as she's trying to grapple and deal with these respective things. But I did think it was like easy to be able to pick up and read for like at least a couple hours read in terms of the audiobook, and I thought it was the narrator did a great job. I would probably give A Certain October 3 out of 5 stars overall. In terms of my reread, I remember like one of the things that I originally complained about in my first reading was that I think certain issues could have been explored a little bit better, and I also felt like Scotty's autistic brother was kind of not given as much attention in terms of things that he could have been in terms of how he was portrayed in the aftermath of events and things like that. I think it could have been done quite a bit better in terms of things, but overall, I like the read. So, A Certain October by Angela Johnson, 3 out of 5 stars. The fourth book that I read was The Voting Booth by Brandy Colbert. This was a wonderful YA rom-com, essentially going between the perspectives of Marva and Duke, who are trying to vote in their local area. Marva is very passionate about voting, and Duke is essentially trying to get registered and vote, and he has to navigate with her to all these different locations for polling places because he realizes that he's not registered to vote, and then there's only certain locations that he can vote based on like being able to register and having all of his things that he needs to be able to do it on the day. And so like Marva's essentially dragging him along with her in terms of being able to get him to vote and help him navigate his time voting during this one hectic day. But you also learn a lot about the characters in terms of different things, and it toggles between humor and really serious topics in terms of things like you learn about Marva and her missing kitty, which is a viral kitty named Eartha Kitty, which I love the reference of that in terms of things. It was so sweet and funny and cute. And then you're also learning about Duke's respective family issues in terms of things, coping with the death of his brother, as well as navigating some emotional roughness within his family. But it shows a really nice connection between Marva and Duke as they learn to get to know each other, and they end up being able to have a relationship together in terms of things, and I thought it was really sweet. It was very appropriate to be able to read that during the time that like I read it like the week of election week, so that was pertinent, but I thought it was a bright spot in an otherwise like depressing week in terms of things, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I gave The Voting Booth by Brandy Colbert 4 out of 5 stars. Very strong YA contemporary rom-com. Really well done. And I really enjoyed it. It was one of my favorites this year. Next book that I read, the fifth book that I read in the month of November, was It Waits in the Forest by Sarah Doss. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It was one of my most disappointing reads of 2024, if I'm being honest about it in terms of things. And I was so looking forward to reading this Caribbean-inspired book in terms of things. I think the main issue, and I may do an expansive review to talk about more of its respective issues in terms of things, some of the things that I liked about it, some of the things that I disliked about it, but overarching, I think to summarize what disappointed me about It Waits in the Forest was the fact that it was longer than it needed to be. It really could have streamlined a lot of the conflicts, a lot of the different things. It spent too much time on certain aspects of the novel, not enough time on others in terms of things. And while Selena was a compelling character, I think the narrative got bogged down by so many different side stories in terms of things through the course of the narrative, and I think that contributed to the way some of the side stories were compelling, others of them just really didn't land as well as I'd hope that they would. It does a decent job of being able to like compel you and keep you guessing in terms of whether or not you're actually witnessing like a supernatural type thing, or whether there are other things at play in terms of this respective mystery story. But the overall, there were definitely points that I liked in this particular novel, but the weight of the narrative, you could definitely tell how long it was, and it was longer than it needed to be. So that's a major criticism that I would say for It Waits in the Forest by Sarah Doss. I give it 3 out of 5 stars. I'll talk about it more in another video in terms of like what I liked about it and what I disliked about it in terms of things, but I definitely think it could have landed a lot better than it did. 6th book that I've read in the month of November of 2024 was You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. This I didn't care for this particular book, but it definitely entertained me during the course of reading it in terms of things. This is a dual perspective novel that follows a woman named Gracie who is going to a retreat in this like small remote town, mountainous town in terms of things, and she basically like goes to an Airbnb like with one of the owners whose name is Calvin, and they end up striking up a relationship in terms of things. But not everything about this small town is as it seems. Not everything about Calvin is as it seems, and there are definitely like questions in terms of how Calvin's former girlfriend actually passes away, and then like the former tenant that is at this Airbnb has gone missing. So let me correct that. But I was entertained for the collective narrative of this respective book, and did guess a little bit at the ending in terms of things. There is a little bit of a twist in terms of how things go. It was entertaining, but I think the execution, some of it, the lines were a little bit cheesy. Some of the prose and some of the sequencing of certain events were a little haphazard. So that's kind of what it contributed to me not really fully enjoying it as much as I wanted to. But it was an entertaining read for what it offered in terms of things. I didn't have high expectations of it in terms of things. It also kind of reminded me of the movie a little bit. Like, I'm not saying like the story goes into this direction or not, or in terms of things, but the movie Devil's Pond with Tara Reid, I'll put a picture up for your reference in terms of things. It kind of reminded me of that movie a little bit, but it's like slightly different vibes in terms of things. And fun fact about On Devil's Pond, like the ending theme song is done by Brad Kane, who many people know is the singing voice of Aladdin in terms of things, and I actually like the theme song at the end of that movie in terms of things. Overall, You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose, 2.5 out of 5 stars. One of the reasons I read this was because Geneva Rose was nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards. So I read this book, but the other book that I want to read by Geneva Rose, I'll probably get to in 2025 sometimes in terms of things. So that's You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose, 2.5 out of 5 stars. 7th book that I read, and I'll probably talk about this in another video without going into too much detail because it's one of a series. The 7th book that I read was Miles Morales, The Ultimate Spider-Man, Volume 1. By various artists. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Y'all know how much I love Miles Morales. I love this overarching compilation in terms of starting with Miles Morales' origin story of how he's bitten by the spider, having to deal with a lot of different things in terms of adjusting to his powers, his uncle re-entering his life in terms of things, and the lead up to like a lot of different adventures that he has with grappling with his new power. I really enjoyed this. I definitely had on my list in terms of finishing up the other 2 main Ultimate volumes, so I'll probably do a separate video in terms of chronicling the specific stories in each of those volumes just to have it in one video. But I really enjoyed it. It was one of my favorite reads of this year. That is Miles Morales, The Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1 by Various, 5 out of 5 stars. Loved it. Number 8, the 8th book that I read in November of 2024 was The Trouble with Love by Christina C. Jones. Goodreads did not have the cover version that I actually own in my collection, so I'll put the one that's on Goodreads, which is an illustrated cover, right here, and then I'll shift to the actual cover that I own, which I actually adore because it embodies the character very well, and I like it. It is the first in a series by Christina C. Jones. I love this, following the story of twins who you are following with their respective relationships. I'll probably do another separate video on this particular book to be able to highlight it better because it is part of a series and because I love Christina C. Jones and it needs a video of its own to be able to talk about it at length. But I love the fact that we follow these sisters through a lot of tumultuous things in terms of things, and Cameron and Jai are very dimensional characters that I loved following in terms of things, whether it's having to navigate in the aftermath of a very life-changing car accident, or a cheating spouse, cheating abusive spouse, I should say, among other things, in terms of these sisters trying to navigate their relationships and be able to find their happy places and things like that. I loved it. And of course I'm going to navigate towards books that have twins in them. Just basically like how I thought about picking up the crossover, like as I mentioned in terms of the reads that I had before. But The Trouble of Love is adult romance. I adored it. I definitely plan on continuing with the respective series. Trouble with Love by Christina C. Jones, 4 out of 5 stars. Very well done. And then lastly is a book that I've had on my TBR for the longest time, and I finally finished it. That is going to get a video of its own, which I adored. I loved how layered the development of this respective book was. This is The Coward by Stephen Aryan. Kel is such a compelling character, and you're following him on his respective journey, like after like being lucky enough to survive like the first hero's journey he goes on as the youngest among a group of epic heroes. He's the only survivor, ends up cutting off the head of this respective threat in terms of his first journey and returning back home to the kingdom. And then his king decides to recruit him again because trouble is brewing in the kingdom again, and Kel is like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I am prepared to be able to make this journey again, and because it means I'm probably going to die, and I don't want to do that. So Kel is very adamant about not continuing this journey, but as he is able to start on getting his supplies, and he's basically said like, hey, you need to do this in terms of things, he plans on deserting. But then when he starts meeting some of the respective team that he fought is journeying with, and when they hear about like the threat that is basically like oncoming and like encountering different things with the respective cities that he travels to, he meets this colorful cast of characters, and they basically convince him to undertake the journey anyway in terms of things. And they have a lot of hard fought battles. You get to know the characters very well, and it's just a very compelling narrative. I'm not going to spoil the ending for it because it is a duology, and I do want to talk about it in a separate video in terms of things. But I loved reading The Coward. I think one of the reasons why I kept delaying so much on The Coward, because some parts of it are just like really heart-wrenching in terms of things, and it has a lot of deep character work in this epic fantasy. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I had the chance to finish it this year. I would definitely recommend it, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading the follow-up in 2025, The Warrior by Stephen Aryan. But The Coward by Stephen Aryan is the first book in the I think it's Quest for Heroes series. I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. My bad. Like I said 5 out of 5 stars. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Very stellar. I loved it. Recommend it. Definitely, I am looking forward to reading the last book in the respective duology. So that is it for my reading wrap up for the month of November, and I have my December wrap up to do as well. It'll probably be streamlined much like this respective video was in terms of things, because I'm going to be doing my end of year list for 2024, and I'm also going to be doing deeper dives in some of the books that I mentioned in this video in separate videos, so that I can have more time to talk about them, like in terms of what I liked, what I disliked, that kind of thing. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be informed of when I post new videos. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next video.